Now, okay, this video is going to be doing a rack and pinion on a 2006 Pontiac Grand Prix 3800 Series 3 base model. There's actually some special special details that you got to get off the options sticker, which can be located in the trunk. And I'm going to go ahead and load my B-roll on that in now. Okay, so basically it's a pain in the ass. If you already have one, I don't know if my light's able to see it very good, but it's way down there. So there's a couple decent videos on YouTube, and the reason I'm making a supplementary video, okay? Everybody on YouTube's doing it with a lift, and let's be honest here. If you own a lift, you probably don't need very good YouTube instructions. You know, you just kind of want something to see so that you don't overlook anything, or maybe you know any special tools you need ahead of time. So here's how we're gonna do it. Right now, I'm sitting on two jack stands, two cinder blocks. I opted out of jack stands because we're gonna have to drop the K-frame, and I don't want it wobbling around on jack stands. I know people are gonna scream and say, cinder blocks break, it's dangerous, don't do it. Well, let it down on them easily. You know that center strip in the cinder blocks, try to line that up with the center strip on the car, and you'll be okay. I took a square body and I one-tonned it. To get a Dana 60 up front, and I was fine. So what we are going to do is take the jack stands after we're in position, and I'll just kind of put them like in half an inch under the front of the subframe where we're not going to drop it. Then if something did happen, it would be a catch, like a safety. But at any rate, I'm going to be pausing a lot. And again, this isn't really comprehensive. This is just so if you're doing it at home without a lift, somebody who's guinea pigged it for you will go ahead and show you the way. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pop my tires off. Okay, so I went ahead and I got the front tires off. I'm going to try to do it without putting the back on jack stands. If we get to that point where we need to, we will, but I think I'll be able to fit, and I should have enough room to lower the back of the K-frame and still keep the jack under there. If not, we will interpolate. And this video is sponsored by Super Joy. Nah, just joking. Kind of cool though. Then it keeps the kid busy and I got a buddy with me. So, okay. So we're on the cinder blocks. I went ahead and put my fender skirts on each side just to give it a little extra grip and just so it's not rough on the paint. If you have the money or have them, they do sell these little adapters for jack stands that are like these cups that got a slit in the center. For these unibody type vehicles, and I would imagine you could lay that right on the cinder blocks also. But I almost got 300,000 miles and this is my daily beater, so I really don't care. But as you can see, it's not going to break, it's not going to go anywhere. So, okay, step number 2. And you're probably going to need a partner or some tape to do this. But you got to measure rotor to rotor from this side to the other side. Doesn't matter if you measure from the inside or from the outside to the other side's inside, the outside to the other side's outside, inside to inside, inside. You get what I'm saying. Just remember how you do it. Get that measurement, because you're going to have to take off the tie rods and you're going to have to separate the outer from the inners, because more than likely you're going to have new inners that are going to be on your steering gear, or you're going to be transferring inners over. And I can tell you right now, it's going to make life a lot easier. If you measure that, it's going to be close enough to be able to drive it to an alignment shop. That doesn't mean you don't need to get an alignment. Don't be stupid and think that. I mean, I guess if you're going to put 20 miles on it and sell it, it probably doesn't matter, because you'll never see the wear patterns. But if you don't get it aligned and you do that and you eyeball it, 100 miles down the road, you're going to have fucked up tires. Don't believe me? Go ahead and try it. Okay, I just got done measuring it with my son. Yeah, that's why I use the video games to dope him into coming out here to help me. But at any rate, 63 1/4. So if you fuck up this step, or you forget to do it, or you misplace it, mine's probably pretty damn close to the same as yours. I mean, there's other things that could be off, so I'd measure yours. But worst case scenario, 63 1/4. Oh, and I went outside to outside. Basically, from the inner corner here, what would that be, like 7, 8 o'clock-ish? Okay, I just wanted to show you here. Okay, passenger side, right? There's my boot right there for my rack and pinion. That is where I'm leaking. Now, there's a couple brothers that got a video out there where they see this boot leaking, and it's like, oh yay, easy fix, you just need a new boot. Nope, sorry, boots don't leak. Okay, boots, first off, and I'm sorry I don't have better lighting on there, boots are not liquid sealed. Okay, what it is when you get that inner tie rod off, there's a seal inside on the end. Granted, there's multiple seals. I forget the name of that seal, but I have it written down. I'll insert it now. But on my particular unit, the gears are actually okay. It's that seal. Now, I could have rebuilt it myself, but I'm at 89,000 miles, and this is the first time I'm doing this. So I don't do enough rack and pinions to justify all the tools and reboring it and all that. And if you just put the seal in without doing all that, well, go ahead if you want to do it that way. But at any rate, yeah, you can't just fix the boot. I've seen a lot of them where this tends to be where it fails. And you're also going to know, let's see if I can get the light in there. Let's see all that sludge making my pretty aluminum look bad. Now, when you first see that, you're going to assume, oh, okay, it's got to be my power steering lines, you know, because there's your high pressure right there and your low pressure is like right behind it. Well, because the shit's squirting out under pressure, especially at high RPMs, it's just coating everything. Mine's actually been leaking for a couple of years now. I just keep topping it off with fluid. And actually, I'm going to show you a tip if you're in that situation and you either can't afford this or it's too hard to do it. I'll show you a trick for a lot easier way of filling the fluid on these, because as you know, it's really low to get to the power steering cap. But at any rate, so make sure that that's not leaking, you know, and the best way to do that, if you don't know, go ahead and, you know, shoot all that with brake cleaner, you know, power wash it, hose it down, whatever you need to do, and then fill it up, and then just put it in the position like I got it here, run it, maybe have an assistant, you know, give it some gas, see if you could start to see where it's seeping from, you know. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. So yeah, if your boots are leaking, you can't just replace the boots. It's not that easy. Okay, because I don't have the steering wheel thingy to keep it from moving, I'm going to anticipate that I am not going to move it. So I'm going to do my steps in a little bit different order, okay? And I think this is a better way to do it anyways, but you can see I'm already leaking just from sitting there. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take off both my tie rods first, okay? Then there's this little like set screw thing. You will get to that. It's going to be where the rack actually connects to the steering column. We're going to do that one second. And the reason we're going to do this one first is because we don't want to be messing with this and then have it be turning everything. You know what I'm saying? We want to pop these off, make sure that the tie rods and all that are not going to be wanting to shift, and then we're going to go ahead and drop it from the steering column. So basically, let me try to get the camera under there. The nuts underneath. I'm going to have to lay down. It'll make it work a little better. There you go. As you can see, I already took out my cotter pin. And if you watch my video on how to properly install a cotter pin, you will see, you're not focusing. I was able to just effortlessly bend the one leg back and slide it right out. Now granted, that's only 2 years old, because 2 years ago I did all my everything with the exception of the inner tie rods. So I mean, everything's basically like new, you know. But if you're in a salty environment, it's going to be a little bit tougher. But it's going to be an 18 millimeter. I like to show pictures for the hearing impaired, since I don't want to sit and caption everything. 18 millimeter, okay? And then when you go to separate it, I use a tie rod removal tool, and it's the Performance Tool W83025, or you can use a pickle fork. Now, if you're going to replace everything, I go ahead and pickle fork it. It's a lot quicker. It's a lot easier. Personally, I don't want to rip my boot and beat it up because this is still all solid. I mean, I got zero play. It's like new. I think I've only put, I don't know, 30,000, maybe 40,000 miles on it since I did all that. Oh yeah, one other thing to point out. When I did do this, it was all the mid-range O'Reilly's parts. I'm not going to go through all the part numbers, but point being, I'm in 18 millimeter. Yours may be different. I can't remember if the factory was the same or not. It probably was. So let me go ahead and get those popped off. Yeah, I'm not going to tripod it and show you all those steps. Again, this is just the supplementary video. It's not comprehensive. You know, I just broke this loose, and I just want to remind you why anti-seize is your friend. I mean, look at that. Again, I'm not in the Rust Belt. Grew up out there, learned the wrench out there, and it sure makes it like cheating coming down to the South. I mean, it's just effortless to do mechanical work in the South after you've done it in the Rust Belt. But, yep, there you go. Okay, I just went to try to pop this sucker off, and my tie rod remover actually does not fit on this unit. I mean, I tried tapping it a little bit, but it's just, if it was even a 1/16 of an inch bigger. What I did try doing without success, and I didn't think it would work, I flipped my castle nut around so I wouldn't, you know, mess up the ridges, and I tried hammering it to see if I could get it to get started, but I had no luck. So I'm gonna have to pickle fork it very carefully, and I hope I don't rip my boot. Okay. After the tie rod came off, I went ahead and got the sway bar end link, the lower part off. 18 millimeters. This one's a little bit of a bitch. This back part is rounded and the center's rounded. This is a Master Pro. And I know when I took my stock GM one off, it was a little different. I can't remember if it, you know, had two flat sides or a hex in there. It's, if I remember right, it's, you know, God, it's been a while. But I want to say I did the same thing. I put some vice grips in there. You can kind of see how I did that. Well, first, I went ahead and I tried to get it loose, you know. So I banged it, you know, with air. And it just free spun. and that was at 150 psi. So then I went ahead and, locked the vice grips into place, and then it came right off. 18 millimeters. Now I'm just going to go to the other side and do the same thing. Actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and show you that with the vice grips off so you get an idea. You don't want to rip this boot, Kind of a shitty design. I mean, they could have easily flattened that for a wrench. I guess if you're putting new stuff on, you could hit that with a grinder on each side until you get a wrench to fit it. And I don't know. It's not a big deal to put the vice grips on there. Just kind of hack to have to leave the vice grip marks on there when it could have been designed another way, but oh well. Okay, so I went ahead and for no particular reason, I went ahead and did this one first on the driver's side. The sway bar end leak. I went ahead and hit it with the blasters again, and this time it worked. I got lucky. No vice grips needed. Also, it's a real tight fit. That's why I'm using my reducers and my 3/8" drive. No, you don't need impact sockets. I've been doing that shit with my sockets for years, and knock on wood, I've never broken one doing that. But at any rate, so now, tie rod end number 2. See why I do pins that way? Look at that. You keep one side straight and you got something to bend it against. That's how they're designed. I say that because the comments I get on my fucking video about it piss me off. Ooh, look at that. This one's not looking too healthy over here. Ooh, I don't like that. If I could focus in on it. Negative points for Master Pro. Alrighty, fuck you, O'Reilly's Master Pro. That's only 2 years. Unless if my daughter jacked the curb or something and I didn't know about it. But yeah, that's gonna get replaced. Was to just use a 6-inch extension, 1/4-inch ratchet, and my 11mm 1/4-inch socket. And I mean, you can kind of get an idea. It gives you room, I'm on it right now. Actually, except for their video is designed to get you to buy their steering gears. And I did a little research on the company, and even though when you send the core back, you get a lifetime warranty, what they don't tell you is that they don't rebuild and they don't manufacture their items. They just basically pull them from the junkyards, clean them up, slap some paint on them, and you kind of cross your fingers. So for anybody that doesn't know the difference, if it's remanufactured, there's machining done. If it's rebuilt, there's seals replaced. Well, remanufactured, you're going to have it, the whole thing, seals and the machining. But at any rate, let's get on with it. Here's mine, my old one that I took out. And right now it's driver's side, passenger side, like you'd look at it if you were sitting in your driver's seat. So I just kind of want to go over what's real common on these is for the bellow, or if you want to call it boot, but it's technically a bellow, for it to appear to be leaking. And what's actually happening is there's some seals oh, I forget the technical name for it. I'll drop it now. But those seals fail on each side. And like in my situation, it was a real slow leak. I've been topping it off for the last couple of years because it just wasn't bad enough for me to have to worry about it until about the last couple of months. But basically, it would leak from that seal, and then it would fill up in the billow. And then, of course, because this isn't, sealed, it would wheeze out and drip out and puddle up and, all that good stuff. Now, when it started getting real bad, it actually developed a crack on this one. And what happened was it would purge out through the vent tube here and then came out that side. But it was actually this side that failed, and that's the one that for some reason seems to normally fail. So really important, by the way, to not kink these vent tubes because, when it's doing its stuff and moving, that's kind of, what keeps the air from building up and all that good stuff. But at any rate, let's see. So the tie rods. Both tie rods, it was righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, looking at it from this side, or looking at it for this side. Same with the lock nut, so that wasn't too much of an issue. 11 millimeters. That's going to be the nut that you find. If I can find the... oh, I got to come around to this side. See that little notch? And I'll show you later. But that's going to screw in and hold that notch so that it can't drop out of place. That's what's going to connect it to your steering column. Well, let me go ahead and show you what we got going on here. Well, actually, I'll go over ball joints. One thing I will note is I did not have a easy time using my normal tie rod remover. Neither did I a while back when I did my tie rods, which I used O'Reilly's Master Pro. But I ended up having to use a pickle fork, which if you get this generic one, they never work that good. That Lyle kit right there, let's see. 41500. It's like bam, bam, and it's out, But personally, when you pickle fork these, unless if it's got hardened steels, I wouldn't trust pickle forking it and then putting it back in. Do that at your own risk. Not risk. I'm tired. But at any rate, I'm real tired. It's been a long day. You can see, these Master Pros didn't last that long. I want to say I put 40,000 miles, and one was actually bad. So I was going to attempt to reuse them, and then when I saw the one that was bad, I'm like, fuck that shit, we're going to a Pro Forged. And I'm going to drop it right here. But you'll see, it's got internals that are basically forged. It's premium steels. If you go real cheap, you could even have a nylon ball. And I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the cheap stuff. These are pricey. I want to say they're like 38 bucks a piece times 2. But it's well worth it. Okay, let's go ahead and get under here. When you start this project out, first thing you want to do, you want to measure your rotor to rotor. I went from the outside to the outside of the other one. Doesn't really matter how you do it. Just remember how you did it and be consistent so that when you try to line this up, you get it as close to aligned as you can so you can hopefully drive it to the alignment shop and not have to worry about having it towed. Unless if you got an extra set of tires, that always helps out. I don't for this particular vehicle, but go ahead and knock these off. I used an adjustable on this, so I can't tell you the size. 18 millimeter, which that could be different depending on which ball joints you got, but there's a good chance. And then I went ahead and I took off the sway bar on each side. And that was also 15 millimeter, sorry. Those are 15 millimeter. I'm going to be inserting all these sizes in as I speak too, so if I'm wrong, I'll catch myself. Then, let's see, what you're going to want to do is come around I'm sorry, it's not the best lighting. I may have to move it around a little bit here. But you're going to want to come up. I got to lay down on the floor here. Naturally, you're going to do this side. You know, go ahead and take this one off and that one. And now mine's down. I've already dropped my K-frame. You got to drop it down quite a bit to have access to this, which reminds me, the main reason I'm making this supplemental video. Everybody who's doing this is doing it with a fucking lift. Now, we all know that most of us don't have lifts, okay? I use 2 cinder blocks on each side. I put the Summit fender mat on there just so I didn't fucking scuff my paint and shit. But basically, that gave me enough room. And I'm not a small guy. I'm 5'8", I'm 200 pounds. I got just enough room to scooch under either from right behind the cinder blocks or right in this way. Okay? So, before you even start by dropping this, you're going to have to go up. And basically, you're going to use a pry bar. There's going to be a boot that you'll see later in my video. You need to pop that boot off. And then with one hand, you got to kind of pry up the boot. And then you can get to that 11 millimeter bolt. So you want to disconnect that before you drop it, okay? Then, let me get around over here. You see where I got that zip tie? It's tight. It's real tight. I'll try my best to give you as good of a angle as I can here. See that blue zip tie? I tried to use blue to make it easier. There's that little clip right there that holds the high pressure and the low pressure line in place. Behind and to the right of it, there's a clip and it retains your wire for your O2 sensor. Now, mine, after I got it back in just a few minutes ago, I went to take a flathead to open the clip, and I shot it. I spent an hour looking for it, and I couldn't find it. You know, it's just one of those things. So I said, fuck it, you're getting a zip tie. But at any rate, undo that. Otherwise, you're going to crack it. Not the end of the world, but it's nice not to do that. Which puts you in good shape down here. Then you're going to want to come to the top, okay? See those 2 heater hoses right in the center? Temporarily pop those off, because when that lowers down, it's going to stretch them. And you don't want to break that plastic clip right there. You don't want to break that clip. Now, once you get it lowered and everything, depending on how you undo the high and low pressure lines, you may want to stretch these and put them back up to open this area up. Because something that I do differently than all the other methods that I've seen on YouTube, I break loose the high and the low pressure side from the top. In my opinion, it makes life a lot easier. And it's actually way easier if you do it before the back half of this engine starts leaning that way. But I went ahead and tightened it before I put it up just to see. And it's a little snugger, but I could do it. But basically, what I do, okay, I take all these extensions, because I still don't have 1 or 2 real nice long ones. But I mean, that's pretty long, okay? And let me try to get you in relationship to where I am here. Okay, we're on this passenger side. I've already removed the reservoir, which was on these 2 10 millimeter stamped sheet metal nuts. And if you can see, you can fit a flared crow's foot on there. And then you got quite a bit of room. This angle works perfect. You see that metal bracket to the right of my extensions? Line it up roughly with that. I went ahead and used my my 1/2-inch ratchet, and I used a little breaker bar on there. This, and then whatever you use. And if you want to use a breaker bar, that's even better. I opted to do this because I like how it's adjustable, because I can slide it. And that almost effortlessly, with an elbow swivel, pops it loose. Now everyone's saying, oh, 18 millimeter wrench, because by the way, they're going to be 18 millimeters. You're going to strip the fucking shit out of that, man. Unless if you pre-loosen it to make a video or don't tell anybody and then use fucking vice grips to get it back on, you're going to be in a world of hurt if you strip those fuckers out. You don't want to do that. So for anybody who doesn't understand what a flare nut wrench is, and I'm actually using my crow's feet because they fit a lot better. See how it's got that catch? I mean, you can't strip it out. It's going to fit. It's a 6 hexagon shape. It's going to fit really snug. 18 millimeter. And you'll see, you put that on first, and you can see the angle where, you know, if you're going to loosen it and you got to go left, you know, you got to position it back to the left enough that you get like, you know, you get like maybe 1/4 of an inch of a turn, and then you run out of room. You do that once or twice, and you can either spin it with your fingers at that point, or then you can kind of use one of these. But I'll be honest with you, unless if you're using a lift or maybe a stubby, I didn't actually think about trying my stubby. These don't fit very good, especially for breaking it free. But regardless of if you use the wrench or whatever, make sure it's flared. Just trust me on that one. So, yeah, tighten it and loosen it. Let me see if I can crawl up there and try to get you a better picture of that. And be careful. Don't be like me and break this. I guess your knee is not meant to be supported on there, so that kind of pissed me off. That'll be a boneyard adventure. Whoop-de-fucking-do, right? Oh, my G-bodies and old shit doesn't do that. Okay. There you go. I might be able to angle the light a little better. Bingo. And that's less room because it's tilted forward, but you can see, I'm telling you, that is so much easier. And there's probably a good 2.5 feet of extension there. You know, but it makes it so much easier. I can't even begin to tell you how much easier it is doing it that way. Let me get back down here. Try not to break any more of my upper shroud. Okay, so where was I? So you got those nuts broken loose, right? Now, when I removed mine, I went ahead and left the tie rods on it. And I was going to replace them anyways. But I'll be honest with you, even if you're going to reuse your tie rods, or you're going to try to reuse your tie rods, take it all out as an assembly, because you can count the threads and do the measurements and all that, which actually I'll give you what mine were to kind of give you a ballpark if you've already ripped it apart and didn't do that. But, okay. Then, let's see. Let me think here. You want to take out the sway bar. On each side, these are 14 millimeter. One back here, one here. Driver's side. And there's one on the end over there. But you basically want to take out the sway bar because it's going to give you a lot more room with these right here. You'll see when you go to do it. So you got to drop it. For sure, you got to drop this because you don't want this to stretch when you lower this. I mean, you can see all that room in here. But let's see. Take out the sway bar. And then after you take out the sway bar, you want to go ahead and finish undoing these if you haven't already done so. You can let them hang down. They're going to drip. And it's not like it's done dripping in 5 minutes. I started this, yesterday and then, come in, this today and it's still fucking dripping. So, either wipe it up or have a catch pan ready. Okay. What holds it on? 18 millimeter. And then on the back side, when you feel up and around, I just pushed it. That's going to be 18 millimeters on both sides. So 18 millimeter wrench on the back, 18 millimeter socket, or whatever you want to use on the front. I didn't have to use a swivel, but it may make it easier. But without a swivel, you do have to either have the sway bar already off, or if you push up on it, it'll actually go down and give you just enough clearance to pop those out. Then when you do get them popped out, you can see these little channels. You basically want to either take a big flathead or some type of lever, crowbar, tire iron, and then, you a little bit on each side until it pops out. And I'm not going to lie, it fits in there tight, real tight. Like when I went to put it back in, okay, the bushing on this side is a rubber bushing that actually is 2 pieces, okay? That had to be lubricated. I used a little bit of petroleum jelly, and I also wiped a little bit inside on the extruded aluminum part that it would rub against. And then on this side, it's literally just a steel stanchion, upside down stanchion. And I also lubricated that. I mean, even with a mallet, it didn't want to go in. And lubricated, I had to mallet it a little bit. Then, of course, once you get it in, take a flathead or something, poke it through the hole, and you can play this game to get your hole to line up. And if it's real close and you get it all the way through and it like hits at the end, usually you could lightly tap it and you won't fuck up the threads. Okay, let me crawl back out here. So, oh, you know what? I screwed up. I left out the step. Before you're going to maybe be able to do that, after you took off the, you detached it from the steering column, it's going to be 18 millimeter for this K-frame. And to give you a reference, I dropped mine down to where, if you look at, oh, that lighting's bad. If you look at these holes right here, mine measures 12 inches to the center of the holes. Okay, so that's my 2 cinder blocks. And then I dropped that till it was 2 inches of level ground. And that gave me plenty of room to do everything. So, I dropped it. Then I think I unfinished unscrewing the lines by hand. And I went ahead and popped out those 2 18 millimeter jobbies that hold the whole steering gear in. So let's see. The other thing I did, and you may want to do this, my shit wasn't that clean when I started. Everything was absolutely entirely just coated in fucking hydraulic fluid, because for the last 2 months it got bad. Like, it got to where I was pretty much putting a quart in a day, and I had to get around to doing it. So 4 cans of brake cleaner and a toothbrush and a couple of rags in about a good 2 or 3 hours. And as you can see, I got everything all clean, which is going to make life easier. Not only is it going to make it cleaner when you work on it, but you can better closely monitor it for future leaks or anything else. So I absolutely hate putting something back together and leaving it dirty. It's my pet peeve. I mean, if you're doing it for yourself, put the fucking effort into it. If you're knocking it out as a business or doing work for a customer, you got to flip it, that's a different story. Time is money, But if you're keeping yours for a while, put a little pride into it. So, okay, I'm going to pause this for a second and see where I'm at. Okay, I rotated to the front now. I'm like right by the front end. But at any rate, sorry, I'm not going to move the light around. I'm pretty beat. I almost didn't do this video out of laziness, but I decided it may help somebody out. You know how it goes. When I dropped the K-frame, okay, both the bolts that hold the mounts and the pucks and shit, 18 millimeter. So that was pretty simple. Now, if you're in the Rust Belt, you're going to have to fight those fuckers. If you're in the Bible Belt, they're going to come right out. I got 289,000 and it came out like it was a new car. The whole thing looks like a new car. There's not even an ounce of rust down there. I love it down here. But at any rate, after you get on your cinder blocks, which, by the way, make sure the hole's face down. That's not considered an ideal and the safest way of doing it. But personally, it doesn't wobble at all, and I've done it. And as long as you're careful and you let it down nice, and you have everything, the cinder blocks lined up in the holes in the center, so that, you know, you have solid stone from top to bottom, you're going to be okay. I mean, I've done that with like 5 cinder blocks on a big old truck that I put a 1-ton Dana 60 in, and I had no issues. Okay, so here's what I did, right? You know how normally you jack it up from the front? Once you get it on your cinder blocks, jack it right from the center in the back, okay? And then when the jack's sitting on it, go ahead and loosen this one and that one. Well, not loosen, take them all the way out. And then what I did was I took a piece of wood, okay? Actually, I used 2 because I was shimming it with different pieces to feel it out. 13 inches. And yes, if you took the top here, my finger can just kind of fit in the edge, so you probably got 1/4 of an inch. So if you wanted to make a line down 1/4 of an inch and then draw it across to the corner and cut that off, it'd probably fit better. But at any rate, by doing that, I'm able to lower the jack onto the piece of wood, and it's slim. So it gives me all the room in the world to work, which you're especially going to need if you do like me and you clean all that shit. You know, I went ahead and just kind of cleaned everything. You know, 289, my motor's always been clean. This fucked shit up, I wasn't going to have it. So then I take a jack stand, okay? And depending on the size of your jack stands, you want to be able to get at least halfways, okay? See how this one's loose? Depending on where I'm working, now I got my safety crutch. So if that board, if I kick it out, which, you know, it's got the motor weight on there, you'd have to hit it pretty hard. If I bump into it, kick it out, this is going to catch it. When I'm working over on that side, I mean, I can move it around. Boom. Now I got a crutch right there, you know. So that's kind of how I did it. I just wanted to show you that it is possible to do it with on the ground. I mean, that K-frame makes it a little harder. You know, it's not like these cheap imports that don't have a K-frame that you just takes you 30 seconds to do in rack and pinion. But at any rate, okay. So then that's lowered down. I'm going to wait till the end, but I'll give you the measurements on these, okay? But we don't have to put the tie rods in until we're actually all done. So what I'm going to do now, and I'm just going over it in my head, I'm pretty sure I have everything. So I'm going to go ahead and lift this back up, okay? I got my pucks right here. I'm going to go ahead and clean them up, wheel them off, put a little bit of nut on there, because a little bit of nut makes everything slippery. Especially if you're in the rust belt. You better damn well do it if you're in the rust belt. And I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. We're all cleaned up. I like to use a drill press with a wire wheel. Makes life a lot easier. However you want to do it. Went ahead and wiped these down in a little bit of brake cleaner. Mine were especially gunked up from all this shit. But at any rate, I got my shit all slathered up. Now, don't get me wrong. Normally, that's something I would like my wife to do. But under the circumstances, I figured I'd give her a break and I would just slather my own shit up tonight. Okay, so that's your bottom cup, right? In case if you lose your orientation. Ooh, that's a little harder when you're doing it through a camera. That one's going to go first. And then this one's going to go on the top. So this will go on top of the K-frame, and then that'll come up from underneath. Yeah, tracking. Cool beans. Okay, let me go ahead and throw these up with the 18 millimeter big boy. Okay, I started jacking up my K-frame. And as you can see, I am off the wood. Well, you can't really see. There you go. By maybe half an inch on that left side there. So here's what I want to show you. You got to make sure when you jack this up that you're keeping an eye, and this is where a partner would be really helpful. You want to keep an eye. Oh, I got to pull the light over here. 1 second. Okay, you got to keep an eye on this top piece right here. Of course, this is stationary. Okay? See how that moves? And actually, this whole thing kind of moves. So, you're going to have to watch that when it gets close, you don't keep jacking and push this. You know? You should be able to feel it kind of touch, and then be able to come back and wiggle it in place. Or come back, just slightly lower the jack and then wiggle it in place. Just don't go He-Manning the jack and, you know, bad shit's going to happen. So, let me go ahead and try to do that some more here. My shit all slathered up. Okay, I got mine in. Boy, is it hard. It's like the only good spot for the light is like right where I'm at. Right where my head needs to be. It's going to be hard to show you that. Okay, the good news is the top piece, I can't think of its name. Well, it's the universal joint, but it's got another name because it's got a purpose. But at any rate, the top universal joint, remember how I said be careful jacking up because you don't want it to bind? I was wrong. That's not going to happen. It would just push it up because where I'm sitting right now, I'm about 1 3/4 inches. Let me open up my measure here. I'm a 1/16 shy of 1 3/4 inches. 1 3/4 inches is close enough. If you're doing this yourself and you're laying on the fucking ground without a lift, don't even pay any attention. Just jack this thing up until you're 1 3/4 inches away. Okay? Then you still got at least 2 or 3 inches that top, man, I wish I could get light in there for you. That top universal joint can push up. Okay? Now, I tried to do it with my fingers. It's awkward. You lay on your back and you get your left arm in there and you can try to put it on, but it's like it's hard to get it to go flush. So basically, when I took it off, I think I used my longer one of these, this pry bar. Now I got my shorter one here. You need to get that on top of the universal joint, and then you can kind of, as you push down, wiggle it, and you'll see it pop on. Now, seeing as though you had your steering wheel straight from the start, preferably locked, but you don't have to lock it. What we consider straight and what the rebuilders consider straight's not perfect. I was able to just turn the universal joint with my fingers, and it can only line up one way because you're going to have 2 flat spots, and then the one side where the bolt, the 11mm bolt goes through, and that's got the notch on the shaft. So seeing as though your steering wheel isn't like, you know, a full turn or 2 turns out of rotation, you're going to be fine. It's actually much, much easier than spline setups that I've done on other vehicles. But what worked perfect for me, and again, that was at that 1 3/4 inches range, was to just use a 6-inch extension, 1/4 inch ratchet, and my 11mm 1/4 inch socket. And I mean, you can kind of get an idea. It gives you room, you know. I'm on it right now. It's actually easier than taking it off, because taking it off, I didn't know how much give it was going to have. So this was all, you know, compressed all the way up, and it was even tighter. Now what I will add, I got lucky and I was able to take my top cup on my K member. Oh, I should have a tripod with me. Okay, put this in first. I mean, well, it went in pretty easy. There you go. Just in case, because it's cutting it close. Fortunately, that's rubber, and it'll push in. But I would say put both of those in on each side first. And then just crank it up till you're 1 3/4 inches away. And then you should be good to go. Okay, initially, I jacked my K-frame all the way up. Okay? But this top cup, it's got lateral play. Hard to see on that angle. So I ended up backing it off about 1/4 inch, okay? And then I was able to more easily line that bottom retainer up. So now what you want to do, you don't want to crank that and have those threads pull the whole damn 500 pounds of the engine up. Well, yeah, with the transmission, it's probably 500 pounds. You don't want to do that. You can strip the threads, and if you don't strip them, you're going to stress them out, especially if they're not rolled threads. Okay, so we're going to do this like this on both sides, get it started, and then jack it all the way up. You know, maybe even until where you see the car come off the cinder blocks a little bit. And then we're going to tighten it down the torque. Okay. Cross member is back in place. Now, on my passenger side, my sway bar bushing was absolutely toast from basically sitting in a swamp of power steering fluid and road grime. So I used AutoZone ones, which, by the way, you'd be amazed how many different sway bar sizes are offered for the Grand Prix. You would think that there, would be the base model sway bar, and then you would imagine bigger for the GT, and then either the same or bigger for the XP. And granted, the XP, you get into a whole new different, strut and brake system. But that was 20 millimeter on my base model. So actually, I'll throw the specs now. That's what I got with my dial caliper. So you may have to mic it out to make sure you get the right ones. But at any rate, with my old one, it was real floppy. As a matter of fact, I could even hear it banging when I drove and I went over speed bumps. This is so firm now, and I don't even know if this pry bar is long enough. I can't do it by hand. I got to use the pry bar to be able to push it back down to be able to line up my stabilizer arm. But at any rate, what's it called? Oh yeah, on the 11 millimeter bolt that went to the steering shaft, I didn't use any looby-dooby on it. No anti-seize. That's just, my opinion. I know I'm one of those guys where I use it on almost everything, but this is a situation where I don't want that to come loose. You know what I'm saying? And anti-seize, if you over anti-seize stuff, you kind of got to be a mechanic and keep an eye on stuff that it doesn't get loose. That's not a spot that I want to entertain again until I have to replace this rack and pinion again. But I also don't want to Loctite it. Definitely not red, not even blue, because it's just overkill, I mean, if you're really paranoid, you could Loctite blue it, but you could end up having a real hard time getting it out and stuff in the future. So, but it doesn't need anti-seize. That bolt looked like brand new. It's got that big billow boot that covers it up. So I just put it right back in the way it came out. I didn't even want to wire wheel it. It wasn't dirty. I didn't want to take off any of the coating. I just wanted it to stay the way it was. It felt right. It felt like it was firm, yet I could do it most of the way by fingers. I was good with it. So let me go ahead and I am going to clean this one up and slather this one up. these are a real pain in the ass too, because when you go to tighten this, a lot of times these like to spin, and you can't just squeeze this because it free spins inside. You know, now if you're replacing this, that's a different story. You can crush the shit out of it and do whatever the fuck you need to do to make it work. But sometimes you just need to hit it with a quick impact so it, you know, catches before it even spins the inside. Kind of like when you got a shot tie rod end that you're trying to get out and it just free spins. So you got to kind of, you know, maybe cock the impact a little bit and just, and it does the fucking trick usually. So let me go ahead and get both of those sides on. Oh, by the way, I did put a little petroleum jelly inside there. So I can't even imagine. It's hard enough to turn as it is, or to rotate. I couldn't even imagine doing it without anything. Okay, I went ahead and I got the sway bar end leaks on and the tie rods. Initially, when I put it in, I set the tie rods up because it was a lot easier to fish it back in. So, optionally, I like to use anti-seize in the hole, on the pad, and right there on the shaft. Now, there's two camps on this. One camp says, no, don't do it because the anti-seize could get inside and then it's, you know, going to be abrasive and it's going to mess up. It's not going to get inside. As soon as I put that Zerk in and I squeeze it out, all it's going to do is push the shit out. So I don't want it to rust. Granted, you know, I'm in Arkansas. Shit doesn't rust out here. But I drive back and forth to Chicago quite a bit. And when I do it in the winter, I get a little bit of salt. Second camp, and this is kind of true, this is kind of a compression fitting, you know, because it's tapered and it's going to like get pressed in. So really, you're not supposed to put any type of oil because it's going to make a much tighter fit. But with that being said, it could make it a little harder to get out. It could almost make like a suction effect, but it's not going to be the same as if it rusts in there. And if you've ever dealt with one that's rusted in there, you would understand what I'm talking about. But if you're in the South or outside of the Rust Belt, you don't have to do that stuff. I don't think it hurts. GM won't do that stuff because it'd be a lot of anti-seize times a million different components. You know what I'm saying? So don't think just because the dealer doesn't do it, you shouldn't do it. So, okay, here's what we're looking at. The way I got this set up, I took my pre-measurement, which was 63 1/4, okay? And I'm at 63 1/4. Now let me show you what I did here. I just took a C-clamp, okay? And I got it holding on my tape measure. And of course the rotors wobble, so you want to make sure that rotor's pushed in all the way. Okay? Then on this application, the inner tie rods are symmetrical. One's not longer, one's not shorter. It's symmetrical in length, at least from what I've gathered, from how it fits into the rack and pinion. And I come to that conclusion because the one that I took out, the factory one with the factory inner tie rods, both of them were 18 threads from the back. Oh, where did I put my awl? Okay, I got my awl. Now, before I even started, what I did was with the nut tight, I started against the nut and I counted every single thread going back to the last part of the threaded machining. Okay, on my stock one, that was 18. Now, normally you don't get lucky and you don't get stock style tie rods. You get something that's more universal and it's its own thing. And then you got the patent issues. It can't be an exact copy of something that Dilco makes. So I go from 18 threads to what ended up being 27 threads in order to get my rotor to rotor 63 and a quarter that I did with this measurement. And you got to be careful. You know, I kind of eyeball it. I was able to see how close it was to this on both sides. And then I knew that it was, you know, roughly in that like 4 o'clock-ish position. So basically what I did, because it's a symmetrical unit, every time you move it in here or move it out, you want to do the same to the other side. And it ended up being 8.5 turns. A half, because initially I was up like that for when I installed it, you know, and I had the nut tightened so it didn't flop around. Not super tight, but just snug. So 8.5 on each side, which ended up giving me 27. Okay, and then the other measurement I take just to be safe, that 1.5 inch no nut. What I do on the old one, I back the nut out, and then I can get my tape measure right there and measure all the way to the end of the threads. Which again, in this application, it didn't help me too much. I also measured zerk to zerk, which is pretty much a decent way to do it. Except for that, you got to really be careful that these are straight on both sides when you do it that way. So it's, you know, not the best way to do it. But my zerk to zerk was 57 and 1/16. And then my rotor, that was 63 and a quarter. So I didn't even bother doing my zerk to zerk. I just went ahead and put my threads at 16. Wanted to see where it was. Saw that it was quite a bit off, you know. And then I just basically, I want to say I went out like 2 full turns on each side in 2 turn increments until I got up to the 8.5. And then there you had it. And then it slides right in, you know, and then of course I will snug this up before I snug this up so this isn't all goofy and twisted and shit. And then put the zerk fitting in. So 18 millimeter, that could be different depending on what components you're using. And then, what was that? 14 millimeter for my stabilizer bushings. I just wanted to show you because I didn't get a good angle on it. But when I was turning it and doing the measurements and turning it and doing the measurements, naturally you don't want to have it pressed in all the way like that. That's close enough. Close enough for me, and then it's off to the alignment shop. I don't yet do the at-home alignment and have those tools. I like to just have it put on the computer and have it perfect. You know, you could do your own alignment, and if you don't drive a whole lot, it'll be fine. But go put 100 miles on it, and your tires will change. Okay, I just wanted to show you here because I didn't mention it on the other side. My other side was like this one. The hole is lining up the way I wanted it to, which is just straight back, so it's not going towards the rotor, the cotter pin placement. This is a good time if you have that issue. See how I just use, you could use a drill bit too, but you just use something to turn it before you press it in. Makes things a little bit easier. Okay, went ahead and 18 millimeter. Got that castle nut on there. I'm going to hold off on my cotter pins. I'll just have them align it and then add the cotter pins when I'm done. And then I went ahead and tightened up the jam nut here. Remember earlier when I said the tie rod just spins lefty-loosey, righty-tighty? The jam nut is going to be opposite. Because you're wanting it to back away. So it was right to tighten the jam nut. Okay, that was the driver's side. I just finished now on the passenger side. Jam nut on this one to the left to tighten. Time to throw the zerks in. Okay, I just got my zerk in on my passenger side. Came back over to my driver's side and got my Zerk in. It's tempting to use a 1/4-inch ratchet. This was a 5/16 Zerk. I prefer to use a wrench. Reason being, while I use one hand to tighten it, I can push down with the other hand. Just because every now and then, depending on the components you're using, Zerks can either strip out or go in crooked. Now, on the cheaper stuff, and especially that O'Reilly's Master Pro shit that I use that I'll never use again, because, you know, I already got a stabilizer link out on my passenger side, and I had the tie rod out on my driver's side, and it's like I said, it's only been 40,000 miles, so unless if my wife smacked into a curb and didn't tell me, I mean, I do mostly highway driving. But at any rate, these Pro Forged, and I've used Pro Forged a handful of times now, I would swear that it's actually threaded with a tap. I mean, it goes in like butter. You know, not like when you take a cheap one and you do it the first time, and if you were to take it out and put it back in and follow the same path. But I think it's because this is the hardened metal, so it really couldn't self-tap, unless if you had a really, really hard Zerk, and they're not going to want to waste money on that. But Zerk's in. Went ahead and got my tie rod ends greased up. Lots of grease out there. I've grown accustomed to using the Lucas Heavy Duty. It's the one that you find that's got the semi-truck on there. But it's pretty good stuff. I don't know, 10, 12, 15 years ago, I started using, I think, was it the 3M, the synthetic one that was red? But then I noticed after like a month of sitting, the amount of separation was way, way, way more than you get with like standard grease. And I wasn't comfortable with that. Which is an issue with, you know, synthetic. You know, it's one thing if it's engine oil and it's being stirred up every time your motor's running, but I'm just not a fan of synthetics that are basically just sitting, you know, other than the wiggly movement. But that's just personal preference. Okay, we're about ready to wrap shit up here. What I wanted to show you, see if I can get the angle there. Pro Forged gives you new jam nuts, and they're nice. They're black oxide. You're not going to get that from anybody else. Maybe Moog, except for I kind of lost faith in them. They're not what they used to be. But at any rate, this is smaller, and the GM one's beefier, and the GM one's coated too. So it was in really good condition. So not only is it beefier, and I like beef, but it's also, had the threads been the same, it would have been that much easier for me to keep everything, all the geometry together. Not that it really mattered, since it was a totally different inner tie rod than the stock one. But I just wanted to throw that in there. Okay, now what I'm going to do, before I get the tires on and finish up top, now is a good time to rotate tires. So I'm going to go ahead and do the kitty corner tire rotation. What I wanted to show you, and some of you probably know this, some of you probably don't. These W bodies, you know, they're unibodies, and they're kind of a pain in the ass to jack up. What really works out nice is having a hitch and a receiver, even if you don't keep this in there. Now, granted, I use it. You know, I use it for my bicycles. I use it for my boat sometimes, but point being, it's $100, but not only is it useful, but look at that. 1 point, jack it up. Well, wheel chock in the way, but both of them off the ground. Zip, 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 done deal. It just makes it so much easier. I recommend to anybody with one of these Grand Prix or anything similar, you know, throw one of those on there. You'll thank yourself. Before I take it off, I just wanted to show you with the K-frame all the way up. Hard to see in a video, I know. But you can kind of get an idea with the swivel. And then I guess the one nice thing about having a bunch of extensions and not a solid one is you can kind of wiggle it around. But that's the angle you want. It comes like just over the alternator. Okay, just to aid you in your high and low pressure crow's feet, 31 inches. That's what I'm getting. Yeah, 31 inches to the end of the swivel. And then to get a little extra torque, I either use, depending on how fat your ratchet is, either a small piece of conduit or a large piece of conduit. Okay, here's a B-roll tip for you. Basically, I'm all done. I just got to put fluid in it, purge out the air, and I'm good to go. But notice how nice and clean my floor is. I just wanted to show you what I do. I use a regular oil change pan. And as you can see, that's got all my drained power steering fluid and the 3 or 4 cans of cleaner, brake cleaner. And I buy one of these like $1 or $2 Walmart painters plastics. They're real thin. They're like, 1 mil or something like that. And I just cut it in half. But I just drape that down. And then I try to aim the pan under, where I'm spraying. And then, when I take that out, I just kind of wrap it up, throw it in the garbage. 99% of it stays on that. Some of it leaches through. But then it's brake cleaner leaching through. You just wipe down the floor and it's clean. So, and then as far as the brake cleaner, CRC Brake Clean, and you can get it at Walmart too. Notice it's not the green can. This is the stuff that's got the, getting tired, what is it called again? The chlorinated. You want to use a chlorinated brake cleaner, which is getting harder and harder to find because the EPA doesn't like it. So if you don't, you're going to end up using 3 times more cans. Okay, I'm good to go and I'm bleeded. So I move this section right here. I fill it. I'm actually going to slip a B-roll in on a trick on that now. Alrighty. It's fill time. The moment of truth. So pretty much if you did your rack and pinion, I know you don't need me to tell you how to fill it. What I am going to do is just give a tip. I always see people fighting around this, okay? I don't even leave the 10 millimeter stamped nuts on there, okay? Because it's not going anywhere. I mean, the hood's going to protect this. And usually it's weighted down with coolant anyways. But literally, all you got to do is move this over, okay? And now, all of a sudden, look how much space we got. There it is down there. You can kind of see it. Not very good, though. Okay, that's tip number 1. Move that. And especially if you're watching this video because yours is leaking and you haven't done it yet and you got to keep filling it, either keep the nuts off or keep them finger tight, okay? Tip number 2. Most truck stops carry these long black funnels, okay? This one, and I got the old mighty measurer out there. It's about 17 and a quarter inches, somewhere like that. And then the tube, okay? I just go to the hardware store. And what is that, about 9 inches roughly? I keep the tube, and then I just got corks that I got at the craft store. You whittle it down a little bit, and then when you need to fill it, you can keep this in the trunk. Make sure that stays up and it won't leak all over the place, So, pull my cork. It's one of those times I could use a tripod, right? The worst place GM's ever put a power steering pump. Even in the old days, they'd at least have a riser for filling it. There you go. That makes life so much easier with that tube. And then I'm going to get over it with a flashlight. And I'm going to angle everything so I can look down and see how much I'm filling in there. And then here's something I want to add. You know, the old way to do it was a cowboy way. You basically just filled up the reservoir, started up the car, it grinded for a few seconds, you turn the wheel left, you turn it right, you shut it off, you go top off the fluid because it'll suck some up, especially if it's a new rack and pinion. Not as much so if it's just a reservoir, but you got to get the air bubble out from when you drain the line. But really on the newer rack and pinions, the better way to do it, with the car level, fill it up to where you think it should be, okay? Jack the car up so the wheels are like half an inch off the ground. Then with the fluid filled where it should be and the car jacked up, come over to the fuse box here, you know, on the passenger side. And this bottom relay down here, this bottom right micro relay, is at 37. All right, am I having focus problems again? There we go. 41. And as you can see, it's your fuel pump. When you pull that, your car is not going to start. Not like a carburetor where it'll run for 5 seconds until it drains the flow pools. Like it's dead as a doorknob. Go inside, pull that relay, go to your steering wheel, and with it jacked off the ground, crank your ignition while you turn your steering wheel left and right. Probably lock the lock 4 times, okay? And when you go all the way to the left and you hit your stop and you hit your far right stop, you got to kind of push. And I noticed on this vehicle, you'll hear this like slight little pop sound, like a sound of like an air bubble farting out. And it moves a little more, and all of a sudden it's like your wheel feels better, you know? And then after you do that, go ahead and come back, drop the vehicle, put your micro relay number 41 back in, check your spooge, crank her up, and then go ahead and see how she's running, you know, check everything, and then from there it's like normal procedure. So hopefully I didn't overlook anything, but that's about it. So there you go. That's what she should look like with everything all clean and everything all in there. So hopefully this video helped you out a little bit. As always, mine are a little long and drawn out, and they're a little comprehensive, and that sucks for somebody just wanting to get a quick 1, 2, 3, what are the nut sizes. But, you know, for somebody who, you know, you don't have any money and you don't want to take it to a fucking mechanic and, you know, maybe I'll do it myself, you save a buttload of fucking money doing this one yourself, especially the rack and pinion. So if you have any other questions, feel free to hit me up. I got $289 on this car. I bought it with $14,000, and I've done all my own work to it. So other than one time I was in Kuwait and the trans went out with my wife and she had to bring it in. That was at $167,000. So trans number 2's been rock solid. But at any rate, that's it. So thanks for watching. If you got a Grand Prix, feel free to subscribe. I also got other shit that I upload when I have time. And I actually got a whole backlog of videos I got to edit and get up on YouTube. So thank you, and thanks for watching. Have a great day.